Hey, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Lonesome Cowboy Podcast. And today I have a lady that I've come to know a little bit because of my involvement and membership with Folk Ontario, now Folk Canada. And this is Rosalyn Dennett, the CEO thereof. How are you, Roz? How you doing?
I'm doing very well, Brian. Nice to see you.
Good stuff. I'm glad you're here. So, when I saw CEO in your title, I thought, oh yeah, that's cool. Someone with a biz head. And then I started to do a little deep dive into who you were, and then I went, wow, look at this. Roz is the real deal. You got a hell of a root sound, Rosalind. Like, holy cow, I want to play with you.
Oh, that's very kind. I will clarify. It's a, and this is small potatoes, but it is executive director, not CEO. I feel like
Okay,
CEO
sorry.
is like the next.
Oh,
That's like the overlord looking
the
over the
the penultimate.
yeah. I have to have somewhere to aspire toward, right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes. Yes, I'm currently the executive director of Folk Canada, which is the organization formerly known as Folk Music Ontario and Folk Music Canada.
Exactly. So, fiddle playing, which you're so awesome at.
Ah.
Did it start as a violin, as it was a classical, and then you discovered fiddle and the roots music, or how does it work?
Oh, that poor instrument has never been called a violin by anyone, I don't think. It has been a fiddle since it was born.
There you go.
Yeah, I grew up in a very musical family. So my dad was actually the first drummer for the band Prairie Oyster. That was his high school band,
So
when he was
he
growing up in
played with um uh my God, that's terrible.
Russell and Keith. Well, Russell and
Russell,
Keith
yeah.
went to high school. He went to yeah. So the three
Uh,
of them went to high school together. They had a bunch of different names. I think yeah, they had a bunch of
yeah.
King City Slickers, I think was one of
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
the names of the group. But yeah, they had a yeah, they were playing together since they were young, and that band went on to become Prairie Oyster. And yeah, and he was also really involved in just like folk music in general.
Cool.
And so he plays Irish drum, like the baran,
Yeah.
as well as various percussion instruments. And has a voice of an angel. I mean, he rarely uses it, but wonderful singer.
Nice.
Um, and my mom got into, she plays classical as well as different folk styles. But she also got really into Celtic music, and that's really how they, kind of connected, was through like a shared love of Celtic music and like Irish traditional music. So I grew up around like I was the kitchen party brat, like I grew
Cool.
up with people jamming all over the house into the wee hours of the night at all times, and really kind of immersed in a lot of different styles of music. And we also have I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, so we have yeah, a pretty deep tradition and history of folk music in Winnipeg. As long as I can remember, I went to the Winnipeg Folk Festival, so really saw a bunch of different styles of folk music and trad music and all sorts of forms. So yeah, right off the hop. And I also can't read music. I'm like, I cannot, I have like
Don't read the
forms
little
of
black
dyslexia
dots.
that are so embedded in my brain. Like there's no
Uh-huh.
way for me to even
Yeah.
attempt. So yeah. So always learning by ear, but like always just wanting to be a fiddle player. And
Hmm.
so yeah. So to answer your question, it's always been a fiddle. Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a question. I just thought of it because I watched the video of you and the gentleman playing the banjo, and you were on a stage, and it was a fantastic tune. Just that real high, lonesome stuff, and I just love that kind of sound. And would that be safe to say that's a significant other or just a band member?
Well, I don't know. I've played with a lot of banjo players, let me tell you.
This guy had long hair, a bit of
Yeah.
mustache, a bit of beard.
Yeah. Yeah, that describes a few of them. Yeah, so probably the video you're referring to is an opportunity I had to perform. This was like right in the middle of lockdown. Uh
Oh, okay.
and and we were doing it was for OMIC, which is Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. They did a really cool series at the Shankman Arts Center where they had basically audiences or sorry, performers perform for no audience in these kind of beautiful empty halls, but with a superb sound and camera and
Sure.
the whole nines. And yes, the person I'm playing with in that video is Rob McLaren, who is my
Ah,
husband and a excellent banjo player and steel and guitar and really just anything with strings on it. He plays
those
in a
guys.
band called Union Duke, and
Nice.
he also plays in the Barrel Boys and
Oh,
all
barrel
sorts of
boards. They just played here a little while
yeah.
ago in Sault Ste. Marie not too long ago.
Oh, very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, so he's the
Yeah.
banjo player for them. Yeah, and so yeah, he plays in all sorts of stuff. And we met through playing music together. So we used to play in Ken Whiteley's band
Oh,
together for a
cool.
while, and we had
Nice.
our own string band. So
Yeah.
we met through playing music.
Yeah. Ken's been on the show too. That's awesome. So,
Nice.
interestingly enough, and I was thinking about this today, and I said, well, what a great person to ask is somebody like Rosalind. What do you think's caused the upswing in this roots and folk kind of sound that people seem to be clamoring for? When you got artists like Sierra Farrell, who's just, uh, uh, um, going hot on the heels of good old pop stars there, that kind of stuff. I've always felt there was a void and it needed filling, but how do you? What's your thoughts on why this became such popular, where it almost makes pop music just kind of goes to one side, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I can sum up the origins of it in about 5 words, which is oh brother, where art thou?
Ah,
That was
ha,
like it
ha.
was
Well
in
said.
terms of in terms of the influence of like that like old time bluegrass Americana
Yeah,
kind of sound in popular music. And when I say popular music, let's just take out the idea of like the EDM dance Hot 103 kind of stuff. And it's, popular music. I'm talking about, stuff that might be played on the CBC or
sure.
is in the kind of general cultural zeitgeist at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that to me was the big turning point when this kind of music was reintroduced because it cycles through, right? It cycles
Yeah.
certainly, there's been like these different kind of folk revival eras.
Hmm.
But I think it kind of entered into more of the mainstream through people discovering it through that soundtrack. I mean, that soundtrack was so stacked with such amazing, some really like legacy
Yeah.
performers, like some
Yeah.
folks that people were just learning about.
Yeah.
And it's
Even
yeah, I
even
think it
Colin
was
Linden showed up in there, and
yes, absolutely, yes.
yeah,
And there was yeah, like wow, what a that was a lot of people's first introduction to folks like John Hartford, Ralph Stanley. Like there was a big, um, yeah, there was just some really incredible performances on that soundtrack. And I think because it was such a popular film, um, it really perforated into uh yeah, the kinds of I would say like folk adjacent indie, like
hmm,
there was a lot of banjos just started popping up everywhere. Certainly it got really popularized early on by like your Old Crow Medicine Show and
yeah,
uh Delamay and
Molly Tuttle,
uh Molly, well, yeah, Molly Tuttle later on for sure, but I'm
yeah,
going like I think Molly Tuttle was just like born at around the time that movie came
that was
out.
all
So,
coming around. Yeah, no, I forgot that the '90s was 30 years ago.
yeah, I know. Me too. It's a yeah, but it was a big cultural moment, I think. And so, yeah, so you have these these bands starting to incorporate these like old timey instruments and elements into their music. And then yeah, and then it just really took off when Americana kind of solidified itself as more of a popular genre and really kind of an alternative for folks who maybe weren't into the whatever country music became. I'm gonna start being that like then getting into those rants of back in my day, country music meant something. Uh, but it is, country music had a really big shift. So what we
It did.
call, what you would have called country music 30, 40, 50 years ago is now like, yeah, trad roots Americana,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
Western swing, that sort of thing. And, what is country music now is like pop rock, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed the guys for another show from Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, and they all pointed to Tom Wilson, his theory that the Americana was started by the band. So Americana is actually started by four Canadians and an American.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And,
And they traveled
they
that highway, he says, at Southern Ontario that went into a certain spot, and he says, and they just kept feeding it back and forth.
100%. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's, and, yeah, Sylvia Tyson's, work too. Like
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of Canadian folks that really, um, yeah, that really influenced the Americana sound,
Yes. Big time.
ironically enough.
Yeah.
But I also think it goes in cycles, um, because if you were, listening to the radio in the 90s, like the big thing was like the Cape Breton music was
Hmm. Yeah.
massive,
Ashley
like you think
McIsaac
back
and
to
all
that
those guys.
time,
Yeah.
Ashley McIsaac, and yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Barra
Spirit of the
McNeil's, all that
West,
fun
great
stuff. Yeah.
Barry McNeil, Great Big Sea,
Yeah.
so you had this really big kind of like Celtic
Yeah.
influence, and that was kind of permeating a lot of the popular music at the time too. So, I
Hmm.
think some of it, I think, is cyclical in ways.
Yeah. I was having a conversation yesterday, day before yesterday, with a couple of musician friends of mine. You may know them. Not that I'm trying to throw names around.
Mm.
Duncan Fremlin and John or Douglas Cameron. So from Whiskey Jack. And
Yes.
we were having lunch together, and we were actually sitting there going, how does a musician actually do it? You know, they were in town for a show on Wednesday, and he says, how do they actually do it? Because how do they make a living? Because everybody's putting out music. How do you know who's who and who's what? And there's just a plethora. Are the days of a full-time musician numbered or over? Because I know in my experience, a lot of people they got that, and then they have the music. You know,
Yeah.
it just seems to be, it's almost like the curtain fell and everybody ran in. And yeah, so what kind of challenges? I mean, how does an artist overcome that to stand out from a crowd that's growing constantly?
Yeah. So, and this is you know, a question that uh I think about every single hour of every single day. Right.
Yeah,
And
in your job,
it's a
yes.
really, yeah, it's a really big one. And in personal life, like my, it's a personal as well as a professional question, I think. And it's yeah, I have some comments on that. I don't think I have the answer to it, but I have some comments on it.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's difficult. It's much more difficult than it's ever been. Some things are much easier than they've ever been. So there's a give and a take, right? So
Yes.
something like releasing a record, it's much easier to release a record now than it's ever been. You can
Hmm.
get your record on the same platform as the biggest stars in the world, put it out there, have it available anywhere in the world, to listen to for, you know, $50. If you wanted to spend that amount, you can also spend way more than
Well,
that.
yeah, I get it.
Um, but you can record into your device or wherever it is, like the the barrier of entry into the music industry is, I think, the lowest that
Yeah.
it's ever been. But with that comes the fact that now you have a completely oversaturated market, and there's the opportunities to make a living, and not even a living, just like some revenue, are so greatly diminished, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's set up against artists. It's set up against independent artists,
Yes.
because there are some billionaires out there that are making a whole bunch of money off of, the
Yes.
backs of the independent working artists,
Jeff
and having a
Bezos.
great time doing it. Yeah, there's a whole whack of them,
Yeah.
and it's Yeah. So have the streaming services, streaming giants ruined it for everyone? Yeah, for sure they have. It's it's that's probably, I think, that one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to like monetize recorded music at this point in time
Yeah.
when where album sales, like physical product, is so much harder to sell. And also the radio broadcast is becoming more and more uh privatized. There's
Hmm.
much less independent radio.
Yeah.
Cars don't necessarily, people maybe listen to radio in their cars, but it's not, people don't
Yeah.
necessarily have radio in
They
their
they come
homes
with satellite
anymore.
packages now and no CD players.
Satellite, yes, yes, exactly. No CD players. No, I mean, my car still has a CD player because it's from 1997, but
Mine too.
that's that's why I hang on to it.
That's right.
Um, I'm like the one person in the industry that says, "Yes, I will take your CD, actually," and we'll listen to it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, yeah, it's super super hard. And then, for a little while, I would say, like, in 2018, 2019, those of us who were being asked that question were saying, well, the answer is live music. The answer is performing live and getting out there, and this is the way that you can, have a market to sell your merch and your stuff to your audience, and there's ticket sales. But then the pandemic happened and that got disrupted, right? All of a sudden we can't play live anymore. Everyone's live streaming from their living rooms and doing whatever they can, but
Hmm.
it majorly disrupted the buying habits um, of audiences. And it still has.
Hmm.
We still have not recovered in the live music industry from the pandemic, because there was like a trust, and there was um, a market that was disrupted there, and it's hard to get back. And as we go also into another economic time of uncertainty, same thing happens again. People don't buy tickets in advance. They go, I'm not sure what's going to happen in a couple of months from now. I'm not sure if I'll have a job. I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
I'm
know.
not going to spend this money on a ticket that's, far in advance. But we know, as artists or people putting on live music shows, that if look at the concert coming up in a couple of weeks and no tickets have sold, you're likely going to cancel that event, right? You're not, it's a
Hmm.
lot to put trust that people will just show up if you don't see any ticket sales there.
Yeah.
So that's the doom and gloom part of it. I do have some happier thoughts about the industry, um, or like kind of nuggets of hope that I have. People will always love to be in community with one another.
True.
People will always want to be together. Um, People will always want to hear live music. We tried the online streaming thing, whatever. Like, it doesn't compare to being, you
Yeah.
know, live in person and
It's
seeing, you know,
a
a
cheap
few feet, a few
placebo.
meters. Yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't cut it, right?
Yeah.
It worked for what we did our best with what we had, but it doesn't make up for, feeling the bass rumble in your chest, and all the feelings that you have of being in a spontaneous moment with other people, in community together. So, and that's the one thing that the robots can't take away from us either. Not to put on a tinfoil hat or anything, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
seriously, in this time of AI, when you can type two words into your computer and someone will write a song that honestly could be played on any of the radio stations playing popular music right now, like, it's it's nuts. So the one thing that they can't take away from us is being together, and
Yeah.
our love of making music together for people. Um, and that, that can spur a lot of things, because ultimately, um, my piece of advice for people that are wondering, like, how do you do it? How do you make a go of it? Um, my first question would be, like, where, you know like, identifying what your goals are, and
Yeah.
identifying your goals are really, actually, that's a lot more difficult than it sounds, because your goals, oh, my goal is to be a musician. But really thinking about the parts of being a musician, the parts of being an artist that, like, fill up your soul and make you really happy. A lot of times you have to do it for a while to figure out what those parts are.
Hmm.
And then, making your plan to try and achieve those goals, but doing it by also like the next question I would ask is like, who is your audience and who are the people that you want to reach with
Yeah.
your music? Um, for for quite a lot of people, um, the goal isn't to become like a worldwide famous, become the next Taylor Swift or become, a super celebrity.
Yeah.
The goal is to be heard, to have fun, to make music with other people, to get to have the opportunity to make music with people you admire. My
Just
own goal.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Just make a living. Just to make a living. We
Yeah,
don't want a fancy
just
car and a
make a
fancy
living.
house. They just want to make a living.
Yeah, I always say it's easy to make a living as a musician as long as you adjust what you think a living is. Like,
I like
you
it.
adjust your style of living,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
yeah. So, but that is like, but that's an interesting thing because if you say it's just to make a living, like again, like if just making a living was your only reason for making music, you know, if that was truly your motivation,
Well,
then
then,
you could probably like put out some sort of pop, again, you could get the robots to do some stuff for you, put it on the
yeah.
internet, put a picture of a cat on it,
Yeah.
riding on a monkey
Yeah.
and make it go viral and get some, like
Yeah.
you
Get
could
Chat
you could
GBT to
figure
write
out
your
a
next
way.
hit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if that was your real goal was just to make money off of it, you could probably find a way to like use the system to probably that's not your goal. Your goal is probably to make art,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Exactly.
goal is probably to
Yeah.
make music to tell a story, to tell your truth, to tell your story, and so yeah, so sometimes that might mean having a job that supplements
Yeah.
your ability to do that,
Cool.
and that's totally great if it means that you're achieving that goal, whatever it may be.
Very nice. Folk Ontario has made the merge with Folk Canada now, and I think folks are getting used to that. I know I'm getting used to not saying FMO.
I say folk Canada before bed like 20 times every night.
There you go. Yeah,
I
it helps you
just,
out.
yeah.
Um, and that says a lot, I think, for the FMO crew because they said you guys are going to be the ones to lead us nationally. Can you give us an idea of how all this came about and what said that we're going to put these two together and you guys were going to be the ones to run it? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so I I'll give you my perspective since like 2019, but I know
Okay.
that this discussion's been happening a lot longer than that. So, there are folks on both the boards of each organization, both Folk Music Canada and Folk Music Ontario, which was originally Folk Alliance Canada and Ontario Council Folk Festivals. There are people that have been having this discussion for a very long time. Um, and really the when I entered in, well, first, actually, you know what, I'm going to back up and for a second and just tell you a little bit about my involvement with the organization because
Hmm.
I first started attending Folk Music Ontario as an artist and interacting with Folk Music Canada as an artist. So Folk Music Canada was doing export events. They were going to like Folk Alliance International or like different music export conferences, and presenting Canadian artists there through showcases and various other kind of export and international related activities. Folk music or Ontario Council Folk Festivals. Oh wait, no, I'm going into history. How much do you edit this? I lost my train of thought. I'm talking about my I'm going into my history and the conference. They're so interwoven. So I'm I'm showcasing with Folk Music Canada at international events. Folk Music Ontario, they're running an annual conference in Ontario. I attend. I'm an artist living in Winnipeg. I attend my first conference in, I don't know, I want to say 2000, somewhere between 2008, 2010. And it was the conference in, I think, Niagara Falls, or maybe the year before that in Ottawa. Um, but it was a while ago. Attended the conference, made lifelong relationships and friends. Was like, this is it. This is my community. These are my people. Joined as a member, went back to the conference every year. When I began working in the music industry, I started, attending as like an industry industry person doing, panels and sponsoring stuff, putting on showcases of my own, involved in that way. I think around 2018, I want to say, I joined 2017 or 2018. I joined FMO. I got elected to the board of directors.
Nice.
So I was on the board for a couple terms, and then came on as interim staff to help um, fill the space when the executive director left, and then um, yeah, went through the whole process, did my interviews and all the things, and ended up landing in the role as executive director. Um, so I've been a part of the community for a very long time, but only in like the staff position for the last 3 years. In 2019, three organizations got together. So it was Folk Music Canada, Folk Music Ontario, and the Canadian Folk Music Awards. All got into a room. They went to like a retreat somewhere, had facilitators, and talked about the idea of like, what if we all worked together? We have the same community, we have the same goals, we all want to like support each other and not be in competition with one another. Like, what would it look like to have like a unified national folk organization? Um, and yeah, CFMA's left that process pretty early because it was pretty apparent that Folk Music Canada and Folk Music Ontario, as like two arts service organizations, needed to like sort some stuff out there in order to make the process easier. And then, a whole pandemic happened, and it took a long time. It was
Yeah.
one of those kinds of conversations. We're member driven, uh not for profit organization. So, things don't happen without the members' approval, without the members' involvement. And so 2019, we had a huge town hall where we got, yeah, a bunch of feedback from the community. If you weren't at the town hall in person, we did a big survey as well to collect all that information. And when, after things kind of stalled out during the pandemic, we went back to those surveys and kind of looked and said like what is the reason? Why are we doing this? Like it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of meetings and such, and really it came down to like, how are we, like, people want this. We're seeing it over and over again that people don't want to be a member of like five different folk music organizations. It's a lot. We're talking
Yeah.
about members' money, we're talking about members' attention, and attention is money, and time is money,
Hmm.
and money is money. So at the end of the day, like, it's it's Canada's folk music sector. It's a large, robust, beautiful sector of music, but it is a sector of the music industry, and it's a sector of the music industry in Canada. So, to try and, uh, yeah, compete for their attention and compete for their time and money, um, is not really what people were saying that they wanted. They would rather, yeah, they would rather have one organization with the same goals
Hmm.
that are serving them. Why Folk Music Ontario why it ended up going that, like, in like the details of how it happened, were mostly because it was the easiest way to do it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Folk Music Ontario has been, this is our 39th year as an organization. The organization was in a really healthy spot, like just financially stable, and with like a really yeah, healthy board, healthy membership. So it made sense to just let that organization that was yeah, was just has been really stable and thriving to
Yeah.
continue and blossom into uh the folk Canada that it's now become.
And a
And
fine
that being
job.
said, too, Folk Music Canada, the board members also um joined our board. So we merged our boards of directors.
Cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, folks, like I've always said, for the price of admission or for a membership with these folks, you will have more opportunities given you than I have belonged to others. And I'm sorry, CCMA, I'm calling you out. You ignore your members and you do make us feel like we're not just giving you money. And some of you other organizations have the same. Never had that with you folks. So there you go. All right.
Ah,
Here's your
hot
favorite.
take, but I love it.
Here is your the this is always the favorite part. It's the last question. Your music. What's going on? Do the Oh My Darlings and
Mhm.
what's going on with Rosalyn Dennett? Do you got any projects coming up? New
Oh my goodness.
shows?
Ah, great question. Uh I mean the short answer is no, but the long answer is maybe sometime.
Okay,
So yeah, I played with yeah, Oh My Darling was kind of like my main writing and touring outfit for a long time. I literally just hung up on a call with lead singer Vanessa Kuzina right before I talked to you. So yeah, we're all very much like in touch
good.
and good pals. But yeah, nothing too immediately in the future. We're coming up to some significant anniversaries of our band. So I'm really hoping that we find some like cool ways to get to celebrate that and do some special performances around that. In terms of my own music, yeah, play here and there. Mostly at this point, I when we're talking about goals and what makes you happy, like I love jamming with people. I love playing
Nice.
for fun. I love
Cool.
performing too, but it's right now it's more like just playing music in community is what is available to me right now. So I have like a weekly jam that I play with my friends,
Cool.
and that's been really fun.
I
And then
love
yeah,
it.
every once in a while I get to hop up on stage and perform with folks, and yeah, that's a ton of fun. But yeah, no big gigs coming up for me at the moment.
Cool. Well, I like to hear that because I'm sitting here going, maybe Rosalind will play fiddle on a certain song I have to record.
Well, I got this mic. It's not too bad. Not too bad.
I'd love to tell you about it. Anyways, Rosalind, tell folks where they can find out about your music and where, of course, they can find out all about Full Canada.
Yeah, so Folk Canada is easy. It's folkcanada.com. And there's all sorts of information and resources up on the website. And if you're a member, we got a brand new members section that you can log into with a whole bunch of information and benefits in there. Um, for my own stuff, my website is rosalyndennett.com, which is so hard to spell. ROSALYNDENNETT.com. And yeah, I got some I play with a whole bunch of banjo players on there
Yeah,
and all sorts of cool folks. And yeah, it's yeah, there's a bunch of music and videos and such on there.
that's awesome. Excellent. Well, like I said, unfortunately, I don't pay for Zoom, so they cut me off after 40 minutes. So I'm coming down with 5 minutes and 33 seconds left. So I'll catch you on the
Whew,
flip side. And Rosalind, thank you so much for coming on the program. And
thank you.
hopefully folks will join Folk Canada. See, almost did it again. Yeah.
Takes a while. Thank you so much, Brian. It's yeah, such a treat to talk to you.
Thank you so much. And